We have some other stories here for our first Alert Winter Ready special. Meteorologist Rickman is going to break down for us how winter has been changing over the decades, over the past 50 years, and explains how climate change impacts everything from insects to crops.
Today we're going to take a deep dive into the winter season. We're going to have a look at how our climate has been changing and impacting winter and how it could impact other things such as agriculture and our recreation industry. So as we look at our wintertime warming across the U.S., you can see we've seen quite a bit of warming across a good portion of the country, especially the eastern half of the nation, and in particular it is the upper Midwest and the Great Lakes region that has seen the largest amount of warming since 1970. Now as we look a little bit closer towards eastern Iowa, in Cedar Rapids, you can see we've seen 4 degrees of warming, nearly 4 degrees, from 1970 over towards 2025. Cedar Rapids isn't the only place in eastern Iowa that's seen a good deal of warming. Near Dubuque, 4.7 degrees of warming from 1970 to 2025, and as we look towards Waterloo, it gets even warmer than that. They have experienced nearly 7 degrees of warming, their average wintertime temperature climbing nearly 7 degrees from 1970 over to 2025. So it is getting warmer across eastern Iowa over time as we go through our winters, and that means we see some other changes as well. With warmer temperatures, you have fewer days with below average, bitterly cold air, and more days of unseasonable warmth and midwinter thaws and things that come with that. You also see less intense cold snaps when we do have those below average days. We're seeing far more record highs being set during the winter as opposed to record lows. That of course impacts precipitation. When you get precipitation during the winter, we're not seeing quite as much snow, and especially early and late in the winters, we're seeing more and more of our precipitation starting to fall as rain instead of snow. All of this comes together to generally give us a shorter winter, and those shorter winters can have quite a bit of an impact on many different portions of eastern Iowa, but across the U.S. as a whole. They can impact things such as insects, fruit trees and crops. Even our recreation industries get impacted by changing and, in our case, shrinking winters. With insects specifically, shorter winters lead to longer insect and mosquito seasons, can lead to higher insect populations, and that can lead to more pest damage to crops and plants as those insects are living and reproducing throughout the summer. You can also tend to see a northward migration of insects and pests as we get more favorable conditions for them to thrive in our farther north climates. This can lead to increased disease spread, as insects can sometimes be vectors for diseases such as West Nile virus or Lyme disease in the case of ticks. So having more of those insects around can increase the probability of some of those insect-borne diseases being spread around. Now in terms of plants, we do have longer growing and allergy seasons for those plants, but you also have a risk of plants being more susceptible to damage from a late frost, because as we get warmer late winters and early springs, plants will tend to bloom and leaf out a little bit earlier, which does put them at a higher risk of possibly being damaged if we do get a late frost during the year. Winter chill is also an important thing for nut and fruit crops, as those trees and plants need an extended period of cold weather during the winter to produce a successful fruit and nut crop for the next spring. So less winter chill hours as we get warmer winters can impact the nut and fruit harvest the following year. And for our recreation industries, we get shorter recreation seasons, shorter skiing and snowboarding seasons, shorter ice fishing seasons, and that can lead to economic losses for our winter recreation industry that is a multi-billion-dollar industry. So these are all ways that our winters will be changing and ways we'll have to adjust with it as our climate continues to change through not just winter, but all 4 seasons.